This is the disclaimer for Wildlife Control Consultant and Pest Geek Podcast with Living the Wildlife Podcast. Always follow national, state, provincial, and local laws when using pesticides and/or other control methods to manage pests. Wildlife Control Consultant, LLC, Pest Geek Podcast, Living the Wildlife Podcast, Stephen M. Vantassel, or their or his affiliates are not responsible for followers' use of the information provided here. Hi everyone, Stephen Vantassel here, Wildlife Control Consultant, bringing you another episode of Living the Wildlife Podcast as part of the Pest Geek Podcast family. Hey, glad to have you on board. I hope you're enjoying your day and that you're looking forward to the weekend. We typically publish on a Friday, so a way to do some education before the weekend perhaps, or perhaps you listen to us on Monday when you start your work week. So anyways, however you do it, we're glad to have you along, and we appreciate your support for our podcast. So here, you could help us a little bit more, take a couple of minutes, click the like button if you see one. Also, ring a bell, subscribe to our channel. Definitely visit us on Facebook. Join our Facebook family where other information is provided and people can share their triumphs and their tragedies and ask for information and tips to help you make money, be safe, and become more professional, because that's what we're all about here at the Pest Geek Podcast. And my episode, of course, is Living the Wildlife, where I deal with vertebrate pests and all things related to vertebrate pests. And sometimes I even deal with some business issues as well. Well, again, glad to have you along. Do take a few moments if you wish to tell us about the show. You can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. You can also give me criticisms, yes, as terrible as that may be. It does help me improve when I hear comments that are going to be constructive rather than just simply spicy, as some people call them. But in any event, our information is free, and when we are getting a support from a particular company, we do tell you where our money is coming from. So today's episode, I'm not getting any money, but we are going to be talking about a product because I was like, I haven't talked about anything that may help someone put some money in their pocket because right away, and certainly want to make sure we don't get too philosophical and far in the weeds and structural. As important as that is, we don't want to have overbalance in one area. And so we want to be sure that this information is helpful for you over the long term. And I think that's important. A lot of times, very easy to always delve down to talking about issues that are always related to putting you money in your pocket right now. And as important as that is, and I'm not going to try to disparage that very much, it sometimes forgets to see the forest through the trees, where sometimes short-term profits hurt long-term goals. And I think you all, if you think about that, know that that is true. If you're, for example, if you just sort of dive to the bottom in terms of price, you may find that you're training your clients to always be driving that price down. Is that really good for your future, for instance? But I digress. Today's episode, and here you're looking at my website. I do hope you kind of check it out. There's a lot of information there, as well as some books. We have Christmas coming up soon, and I have a variety of books available. I am revising the Vertebrate Pest Handbook. That'll be like the third edition, where it'll be a little bit narrower focus. I'll be focusing just on the commensal rodents, but it'll be expanded. I'm going to be updating it, and I really need to get more work along that, but a lot of work has been done. I am looking for photos, however, so if you have photos that you're willing to sell the use rights to, I'm not wanting to buy ownership rights, I just want to buy the right to use the photo. We will happily put your logo or copyright information on the photo before it's even used. I'm happy to do that, but that's a service that I provide as well. If you have a series of photos and you say, Stephen, I want to have them all copyrighted, I'm tired of them being ripped off on the web, or you're just wanting to market your business more in terms of that you have a photo on different websites perhaps, and you want to be sure that you're acknowledged as the author of that, I can certainly help you with that. Reach out to me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. So I'm looking particularly for some Norway rat stuff, but more importantly, I'm looking for roof rat, and if you have pack rat information, photos, particularly like things like damage, tracks, scat, middens where they're nesting, for example, where they pile up all their debris. Those would be particularly beautiful in photos that I would like to have. They need to be kind of print quality. Sorry, what that means is that we need to have at least photos up to 1 megabyte or higher. So that would be over 1,000K. And so if you have questions about that, most of your modern cell phones, if you have one that's been produced in the last couple of years, you're shooting at 3 meg and higher. So that shouldn't be a problem. A lot of new cell phones really take awesome photos if you hold the camera still. And that's very important. But nevertheless, I would love to have you reach out to me. We can talk money about how to purchase the use rights to that. Today's episode, I wanted to talk about a trap that I purchased from Bud's Trap Company. Now, I know Jordan Badensky. Jordan Badensky is the owner of Bud's Nuisance Wildlife Removal, and he's located in upper state Minnesota, maybe in the middle part of it. I'm not an expert on Minnesota, perhaps, but he is up there. I actually drove by when I was doing a little vacation, actually drove by and saw his sign. He had a billboard sign up there, which was pretty cool. In any event, he has been on our show before, and he hasn't asked me to do this, but I purchased a trap because I like picking up traps, in my job as sort of an educator. You kind of pick up equipment, look at it, just you kind of become a collector. Why? Because traps definitively interest me. And so I'm intrigued over the last several decades, the number of new traps, new twists and turns, just things that help make your job go a little better. And so this is his trap. You can see it over here to the right. It's called the Connector. We've talked in the past about his rodent tank, which is aptly named, but that's not the subject of our conversation today. The rodent tank, that thing is built like a tank, and it is wow, that's quite a trap. So I'm not familiar with this minnow trap. For those of you that are looking to capture minnows, perhaps for bait, make sure you're always following state regulations, of course. And then also, if you're using the trap in multiple streams, make sure you're clean. Inspect, clean, and dry to make sure you're not transporting invasive species like mussels. And some of them, frankly, are quite small from one waterway to another. So that's something to think about. It's not just boats, everybody. It's other items as well. So definitely keep that in mind. These invasive species are really becoming a problem. But I'm going to talk today about the Connector, and that's this trap over here on the right. So it's $56. Let's kind of look at his page here. And again, this is Bud's Trap Company. Just as a reminder, I'm not making any money on this. He hasn't asked me to do this. He's not I didn't get this trap for free, although I would have loved to have gotten it for free. I didn't get it for free. So here it is. It's a very compact design, and you can kind of see here, and there's the trigger element of it. And so this is something you could screw onto a house. Now, this is a lethal purposed trap. This is not a trap that's trying to capture the animal alive. It's designed to kill the animal. So those of you in states where lethal traps for larger animals have been banned, unfortunately, this is going to be a problematic trap for you. So make sure you check your state in provincial regulations. But here are the specs on the Connector, as he calls it, and it is 2 pounds in weight. I'm assuming that's sort of shipping weight. Doesn't feel like quite 2 pounds, although it is heavy. There's no doubt. It's in 2 parts here. Hope I'm getting the lighting well. It's kind of dark, so I'm just going to kind of hold this around for you. And so it has this little capsule. So the way the trap is designed, I can hold this bar will be up here, and so it's actually supposed to sit. So this right now, it's been fired. So why don't we set it? Okay, so let me set it. I got to take it off the screen. And I thought the spring would be a lot harder to set because there's no safety with it. And so it kind of uses a dogless type trigger setting system. Okay, let's get this. Don't have a lot of experience with this trap, so bear with me here as I'm trying to set this thing. There we go. Okay. So there's it. There the trap is set, and I hope you all can see that. And notice it's a dogless system. So now the trap is set, and then it has this sort of cover that goes on. And the cover, you see some 2 holes here, and that would match with these 2 spikes there. Just to kind of show that to you there. And that's going to fit inside. So you have to be sure you line it up properly. There you go. Now it's all set. And so this can be clearly, easily screwed to a structure. Kind of reduces access because of the hood, and it gives that sort of nice, clean trail. I'll look through the trap here for you. And again, it is pretty thick. Now, the animal that gets caught in this is the body is going to stick out the sides because it's not very wide. We're looking at what, 4 or 5 inches wide, or 4.5 inch, so it's kind of 4.5 by 4.5 by 4.5. But notice there's lots of screws, so you can actually have this screwed on first if you wish, and not even, and then set this on. And again, it locks into place because those little grooves are filled in by a I don't know, the bent metal, and so that way it doesn't just easily lift off. Although I pulled it off pretty quickly there, you can kind of lock it in. And that's all she wrote. So the trap is rather fascinating to me because you're looking at something that is a kind of a newer design, and it's a bit pricey to be sure. $58 is nothing to sneeze at. However, or $56 I should say, is nothing to sneeze at. However, this trap clearly is built with the same level of quality as the rodent tank. And what I like about it is that it's kind of set up for that blind type set. Now, I haven't checked out the trigger mechanism in terms of how much tension it requires. I'm looking for something that I don't care if it gets broken. And oh, here we go. I can try this. Got some kind of foam styrofoam here, and so let's take a look. Push it up there. Gotta get that down to be able to fit it in and be able to push it properly. So that gave you an idea of what that was like. So it's a serious trap. It's definitely designed for your squirrels and for your rats and for your, I think it might be a bit heavy tension for a chipmunk, but certainly a rat, squirrel size. I would even suggest ground squirrel. If be careful, of course, using a trap like this on the ground, but it can easily be attached to a structure. And of course, if you're placing it inside of a structure, that would be helpful. That would be helpful as well. If you're worried about having a body visible from the outside, you can put barricades up so people wouldn't be able to see the body from the street or from the ground if you so wish. And a lot of you guys are certainly creative enough to do that. But there is no doubt this is a fine quality, heavy duty, something that's going to last you for years in your trapping system. But at $56 each, American labor, I understand that, I believe this is made in America, isn't cheap, but again, this is a quality piece of work, and I think it would give you years of service. So when you think about it that way, you'll probably get the money back from it on one job. Plus, space is a premium. You can fit a lot more of these in your truck than you can cage traps, right? You could probably fit 4 or 5 of these in one squirrel 7x7 by 24 cage trap. So space-wise, this is clearly much more cost-effective for your business. So check out Bud's Trap Company. Again, that's his website here, budstrapco.com. Buds, BUDSTRAPCO.com, and check it out. So to go down through the dimensions here, it is 4.5 inches in length. It's 4 inches by 5 inches by width, 4 inches by 4.5 inches by height. So it's a cube. It's a 4.5 inch cube, and designed for traveling rodents. And you can, of course, bait this if you so wished. You may say, well, Stephen, how would I bait it? Well, that wouldn't be very hard. You could simply put some food right up in here, or you could put some food right up on that, whichever you preferred. It wouldn't be very hard to smear some stuff up. The idea is you want the animal to sort of step on this while they're trying to work this, because this is how this would work. It'd be up in this position, and you want them to stand on it, and then bam. And that would be the end of that. Or even better yet, maybe even put it behind the trigger bar, right where my finger is. I think a lot of you are more than creative enough to use this. Again, do consider the laws in your particular state. Some of you are able to take advantage of some vagueness on rat traps, but you want to be sure that your game warden is on board with that, because remember, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's wise. And so you don't want to have the time of being caught up into an issue with is it legal, is it not legal? Now, there are some trappers who want the lawsuit to try to make a point. This happened in my state of Massachusetts, where a trapper basically took a beaver, as my understanding, and he drowned it for the sheer purpose. This is, again, from memory here, so don't quote me, but the sheer purpose of being arrested and charged to push the point on the law. Because, as if you didn't know, the law is only as good as the last lawsuit. And what he did was, it was interesting, is that it actually reinforced the law and was able to push back on the animal rights movement. He really thought it out. Another issue that cooked up was people were using padded jaw footholds. And the animal rights people said, well, footholds are illegal in Massachusetts, and which they were, but the claim was that the padded jaw foothold was not the same thing, that it was a different trap, therefore not under the previous law. And so the judge said, yep, you're right, it's a different trap. So we had a trapping season for 2 years, and that's what spurred on the animal rights people to come in with the Ban Cruel Traps campaign. So that kind of really... So we poked the bear, and the bear ultimately won, at least in the short term. So, but for many years now, a lot of these traps have been banned, and so they really made a big power grab, and that has to be understood. So you may be able to take advantage of certain technicalities in the law on rat traps. For instance, sometimes you'll have legislation that says, well, we ban lethal traps except those used for rats. Well, if they don't specify what that meant, so a lot of times they may say common traps. Well, you can't say this is common because it was probably invented after that regulation was enacted. But hey, it's your call. This is where we as wildlife control operators need to form associations and develop a sort of a war chest to push back on some of these rather negative regulations, because This is a green method of control, folks. I mean, there's no toxicants here, right? I'm not opposed to toxicants. I'm not one of these people that all toxicants are bad. If you've listened to this podcast, you know full well that's not the case. But this is where the animal rights protest industry tries to have it both ways. They're trying to ban toxicants because it's not quote-unquote green. Well, but then they want to ban traps, which have no long-term poisoning effects in the environment. They'll say, oh, well, non-targets can go into it. Well, which is it? We have to control these animals, but that's really that's the unspoken word. They don't want control of these animals, or they want to make it so it's so expensive that people have to basically make their house a fortress to keep the animals out. And a lot of people can't afford that. In some cases, it's just not practical. So it's really an oppression on the poor, but they often don't want to acknowledge that, right? So check out the connector from Bud's Trapping Company. And again, Jordan Badensky, he is a long-time wildlife control operator, and he's kind of a creative guy. There's a lot going on in that head of his in terms of some creative things. He's already manufactured two traps and a minnow trap, so 3 traps. And so keep an eye on him. I would suspect he will be coming up with some other interesting tools for us to consider in the wildlife control industry, and perhaps this may fit within your business model and perhaps your business needs. The connector from Bud's Trapping Company. Well, this is kind of a short podcast today. Hope you found this helpful. At least it informed you about a new product that's on the market. You can, again, check this out again at budstrapco.com, budstrapco.com. Check them out there. So tell them I sent you. Send them over. That might be helpful. Maybe we'll get some advertising. But I'm Stephen Vantassel. You've been listening to the Living the Wildlife podcast as part of the Pest Geek podcast family. Again, so glad to have you on board. Be sure to take a few moments, if you would, to help us out by checking the like button, maybe subscribing to our channel, ringing the bell to make sure you can see about our new podcast coming out. Also would love to hear from you. Wildlife Control Consultant at gmail.com. Wildlife Control Consultant at gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. Comments, criticisms, suggestions for new shows. If you want to be on the show, definitely reach out again. And this is Living the Wildlife. Why? Because we want you to live the wildlife, not be the wildlife. Take care, everyone.